Within, which was established after the massacre in Gaza, 2009. The Coalition of Women for Peace. You've met them?
We met here, obviously.
Okay, so you know about whoprofits.org, which is an excellent resource for the BDS movement activists everywhere in the world, because it has every single company, or most of them, that are profiting from Israeli occupation. That doesn't cover all the companies that are complicit in Israeli crimes, because Israel is not just about occupation, but that's a good chunk of it. That's a good chunk of it, and it's a good start to start with companies involved in the occupation, and it's the easiest target, because it's very clear. The complicity in violating international law is very clear in that sense. So we have Israeli partners who have helped tremendously, despite their small numbers, in advancing the BDS movement. In many of our appeals to artists, to music groups, it's not just Adala New York, and it's not just our partners in London, it's also our partners in Tel Aviv, who write to those artists and help us to convince them not to come to Israel, boycott apartheid Israel. And coming from a group of Jewish Israelis, it's very convincing to some artists who do not want to be called anti-Semitic, who are so scared of being called anti-Semitic, and to have that kind of support coming from Israel for such a call, Palestinian call, helps a lot to convince them that it has nothing to do with anti-Semitism. It has to do with taking a moral stand against Israel's oppression, colonial and racist oppression, and that's it. As we've always said, the identity of the majority in Israel, being Jewish or not, is completely and totally irrelevant to us. We couldn't care less about the identity of our oppressors. So long as they're oppressing us, we'll continue to resist them. They could be Muslim or Hindu or Christian, it wouldn't matter. Or atheist, it wouldn't matter. The fact that they're oppressing us is the only relevant issue, and we shall continue to resist until we end their oppression and attain our rights under international law. Most recently, we've had many successes of the BDS movement, especially in Europe. And I'll just mention a couple, and I'll stop there to have a discussion. Deutsche Bahn, BAHN, which is the railway company owned by the German government, was involved in a consortium building a railway between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. And this plan for the railway was passing through occupied Palestinian territory in East Jerusalem, or villages near East Jerusalem. So we appealed, we pressured the German government to withdraw from this project because it violates international law clearly. Our partners in Germany did excellent work in pressuring the German government, but we really never thought that anything could come out of it. I mean, this is Germany. It's as bad as it's worse than the US, believe it or not. If anything can be worse than the US, it's Germany. It is the most difficult country to work in, as far as the BDS movement is concerned. The Holocaust guilt has become the new religion in Germany, and together in conjunction with it, total blindness to Israeli crimes. Israel can get away with anything, and Germany will support it from the left to the right. Recently, the left party in Germany, Die Linke, it translates to the left party in Germany, banned BDS. Its members are not allowed to support BDS. Its members are not allowed to support the flotilla. Imagine. Because both are expressions of anti-Semitism. Just imagine. I mean, even in the US, no one would stoop that low. Even in the US. In Germany, the left calls BDS anti-Semitic. And of course, we're in communication with them. Soon we'll go public with our letter to them, exposing their hypocrisy and their complicity. The left in Germany, not just the right, are complicit in everything Israel is doing to the Palestinians. It's not just the US government, it's the German government as well. And German society at large. Totally, completely complicit. And what we're telling them is the Holocaust has not stopped. Its byproducts continue thanks to your support. To us, the Holocaust is not over. It's continuing, and we're paying the price for it. Our misery is the byproduct of the Holocaust, which you committed against your Jewish communities. We had absolutely nothing to do with it, but we're paying the price until today. And you're completely blind to our suffering because of your Holocaust guilt, which has become a dogma in Germany and some other countries. So we're challenging that head on, and we have absolutely nothing to fear. Unlike white Christian Europeans, we don't get scared of the anti-Semitism charge. It doesn't stick to us, it doesn't work. And we don't have a history of anti-Semitism, other than the BDS movement being completely based on equal rights, human rights for everyone, regardless of identity. We don't have a guilt complex in the Arab Muslim world about anti-Semitism. We've never had pogroms or massacres against Jews in our midst for 2,000 years. We've never had that. It's not in our culture. We've never had it. Jews have always existed in this culture forever. Forever. With no pogroms, no ghettos. There were never Jewish ghettos in the Arab Muslim world. Jewish civilization reached its epic, its climax under Islamic rule in Andalusia. Arab Islamic rule in Andalusia in Spain, what's now Spain. So not just that they were tolerated, they were able, Jews, Arab Jews, were able to reach very high civilizational achievements in the Arab world. Not that it was rosy. Of course there were always problems. Of course all kinds of issues come up between Muslims and non-Muslims and so on. But I'm comparing to Christian Europe. There's just no comparison. So we always tell Europeans, Westerners, don't export your guilt complex to us. We don't have roots of anti-Semitism that we have to account for. Any expressions of anti-Semitism, modern expressions of anti-Semitism in the Muslim and Arab world, and there are, of course, are direct results of Western exported anti-Semitism and Israel. They're not rooted, they're not culturally rooted, they're not inherent in our culture. And this cannot be said about Europe. We travel extensively through Europe. Even today, it cannot be said about Europe. Anti-Semitism is not a huge phenomenon because it's just simply, I mean, you would be very, very stupid to make any anti-Semitic remark in Europe today. It's not because people really are beyond racism towards others, but it's because those others have changed. You have another big other, the Muslims, the Arabs, that's the big other, African blacks. I mean, you have many, many others to hate and channel your racism towards. Jewish Europeans become, secondary others. They're not the other that we can hate. Today, it's completely legitimate in Europe to be as racist as you want against Muslims and Arabs. Exactly like it was in the 1930s. Exactly. History is repeating itself against different victims. Today, it's okay to make anti-Islamic remarks as they used to do in the 30s against Jews. Cartoons, the ugliest anti-Semitic cartoons are being reproduced against Muslims today in Europe, in civilized, civic Europe. So going back to the issue of why BDS has reached such level of success in many, many places, it is based on context sensitivity. In other words, it's not a dogma, it's not a centralized movement where somebody orders and other people just do. Everyone thinks, everyone creates, and everyone does. None of us are thinkers and others are doers. We all think collectively, we all create, and everyone does BDS according to their circumstances in their particular context. So some groups sometimes ask, give us a list of products that we can boycott in Arkansas. We can't give you a list of products in Arkansas because we don't know, we hardly know where Arkansas is on the map. I mean, it's not our job, and we can't. You're the experts. If you live in Arkansas, do some research. You will find the best targets, companies that are most involved, most complicit in Israeli crimes. Those would be your best targets. And of course, there are national BDS campaigns in the US, like the TIA CREF, led by Jewish Voice for Peace, an extremely important campaign that the BDS National Committee, the leadership of the BDS movement, has endorsed, wholeheartedly endorsed. This is a very important, promising campaign that we encourage everyone connected with the health sector, with universities who might be connected to TIA CREF to help this campaign. But there are many, many other campaigns. Just recently we received a group of women of color from the US, a delegation of women of color. I'm not good at using that term, I never liked it, but it seems like it's, because I never thought of whites as non-colored, and the rest of us are colored, like white is the neutral, no color. Who said so? They're colored, just like anyone else, but anyway. So if that's the politically correct term, that's the politically correct term. So we had a group of women of color, indigenous, African, Latino, and Latina, and others, And it was such a wonderful moment because throughout our experience in building BDS in the US, it was mainly the dominant cultural groups, white groups, not so much people of color. We have not done enough to reach out to people of color in the US, to the indigenous people and so on, and it's high time we do this. And this delegation and similar delegations that we've met with are building that bridge to allow us to do this, because it's a two-way street. Solidarity is not just a one-way street, because they have many, many problems as well that we have to be aware of and we have to stand in solidarity with in their own struggles against racism in the US, disenfranchisement, the prison culture in the US and so on. There's so many very real issues that people might gloss over and think of the US as this one monolithic, wonderful, what is it called, Gilligan's Island, whatever. You know, that type of imagery and mythology about the US. Unfortunately, many people think so because that's what they see. Hollywood, I mean, that's the image that comes across. You don't see all the other problems. So I'll stop here. There are many, many other examples of successes for BDS, but I'll leave that for the discussion just to take your questions.